When most guys hear ayahuasca ceremony, their mind tends to go to one of three places. The first usually has to do something with cults, demons, a bunch of hippies dancing around the fire with a shaman covered in feathers, chanting over them. Or the second has to do with the puke. They think that the entire night is spent with a head in the bucket, throwing up, miserable, thinking, why in the heck did I do this? Or the third has to do with it being a drug, that people that go and drink ayahuasca are some sort of junkies going and seeking another high and escape. And the truth is that none of those are accurate depictions of what it's actually like. I've had the opportunity to sit with ayahuasca over 40 times, and the reality is that it's a lot more grounded than a lot of people think. And in this video today, I'm going to share with you what it's actually like from the beginning to the end, from the setup process to the come up of the medicine, what it's actually like at the peak of the medicine, to the come down, and even what it's like the next morning, and from ceremony to ceremony if you're gonna do multiple nights in one retreat. And so if you've been thinking about doing this video is going to help give you a more accurate, realistic expectation of what it might be like for you. And so the first thing that I want to share with you that's important to understand is that not all ayahuasca is created equal. You see, there's all these different lineages, different paths, different ways that ayahuasca is served. There's the Shipibo tribe, there's the Santo Daime church, there are ceremonies that are done in total silence, there are some that are done with music, others have Icaros that are being sung, some are done in total darkness, others are done with light and a fire going, so you get the picture, right? Like there's a huge spectrum of what this experience can be like, depending on where you go. And so what I'm going to share on today, I've been through a lot of different types of ceremonies. I'm going to share on what I personally resonate with the most and what I take my guys through on retreats and what I believe is to be the best type of ceremony for a first timer especially. And so there's no right, there's no wrong, there's just many different flavors. And so we're going to start with the morning of ceremony. See, at this point, you've been prepping for weeks, if not even months ideally, and your mind, your body are fully prepared. You might still feel anxious, but you're prepared for what is to come. And so we'll start the day at sunrise and we'll spend the first 2 hours in intentional practice, preparing the mind and the body. We're connecting with the breath, we're connecting with the body, we're doing some breath work, doing some yoga, diving back into the journals just to do some final intention setting. We headed into breakfast, and at this point you haven't eaten meat for at least a day, if not even potentially a couple weeks or longer. And so we're gonna keep the food really light the day of ceremony especially. And so breakfast usually looks like some sort of eggs, fruit, vegetables. Between breakfast and lunch, we have a few hour break. And so I encourage my guys on retreat to keep the energy light, avoid heavy topics like the news, like politics, and just go internal. Spend the time breathing, meditating, staring at a tree, and just relaxing. Lunch, again, a very light meal, usually some sort of rice. Soup is a good option. And the goal is to head into ceremony with a light stomach. You don't want to have anything heavy in your stomach, but you want something in there because it helps with the digestion of the medicine. We then head to the temple. Okay, the temple is where ceremony is actually done. And on the land of the temple, it's in the valley of the jungle. It's like this fairy tale land. It's incredible. It's out of this world. And there's a freshwater river that flows through this property. And so we spend the next few hours hanging out in the river, grounding, just resting and charging up for a big night ahead. About an hour before ceremony, we then head into the temple. And within the temple, every single person has their own space, okay? You have your own mat, and on your mat, you have a pillow, you have a blanket, you've got a puke bucket, which we'll discuss here in a bit, and that's your nest, that's your space. In the middle of the temple, there's a big fire that will burn throughout the night. At the front of the temple, there's an altar where the facilitator and his team sits, the shaman and his team of facilitators. And then underneath, this is really cool, underneath each grid point of the temple, there's this massive quartz crystal dug at each grid point that charges the space, and it becomes a spaceship overnight. It's crazy. And so at sunset, ceremony is ready to begin. We begin the ceremony by just connecting with our breath together as a group, taking a couple of deep breaths together. We do a little bit of light stretching. The shaman and his team share some intentional prayers that they do every single time to open the space. And then the space is open. They then kapal the space, which is a medicinal herb to just clean the energy. Everyone's bringing their own energies in, and the kapal helps kind of clear that energy. And it is now time to drink your first cup of ayahuasca. And so we line up one by one and head up to the altar. And the shaman then at the altar has your cup of medicine. He pours it into a glass. He blesses the medicine. He gives it to you, and you'll never forget your first time. It's such a surreal experience. He gives you the cup, you take it, you bless the medicine, you send your love, gratitude, and your intention into that medicine. You then drink, and it's a very unique taste, to say the least. Every medicine tastes different. A lot of medicine out there tastes terrible. But this medicine, they cook on their own, they grow all their own medicine, and it actually tastes pretty good. It's got a nice sweetness to it, but it's still pretty earthy. So you drink the medicine, you walk back to your mat, to your nest, you sit cross-legged in a meditation seat, and you prepare for the journey. And so once everyone has drank that first cup, we then spend the next 20 to 30 minutes in total silence. And at this point, the medicine usually hasn't come on yet, so you're still sober. You're just connecting to the body, connecting to the breath, dropping into the heart space, and just really waiting. Then the music begins. And so the team, again, they have guitar, drums, and they sing throughout the night. And they start the music really soft, really intentionally, and then it builds as the hours go on. The big drums start to come out around, midnight, for example. And that music, it guides the journey. It really guides the medicine. And every single person's experience is very different when it comes to the come up, but it's not abnormal for you to not feel your first cup ever for at least a couple hours. And usually at that point, and this was the case for me, you start to think to yourself, am I doing something wrong? Am I feeling it? Am I not feeling it? Did I get a weak cup? It's all good. Just, you'll know when it comes on. And so usually about 2 hours in, then the shaman offers a second cup. And so you, just like before, line up one by one, you go to the altar, get your cup, drink it. And if at that point you haven't really felt the first cup yet, it's very common for it all then to come on at once, the first cup and the second cup. And usually what it feels like is it kind of comes on in a flash at times, and you start to look at the fire, it looks a little bit differently, your hands start to look a little bit different, start to feel your body, the music might start to sound a little bit stronger. Some people, they get visuals first, they start to see with their eyes closed vines and geometric patterns. Other people, it may be a feeling that starts to come on without any visions initially. There's no right or wrong. Ayahuasca, it's going to give you exactly what you need. And so you just sit back, you just breathe, and you trust. And so now we are heading into the peak of the experience. And so again, it's very unique and different every single time. I've sat 40 plus times, and every time I've sat, it's been a little bit different and a little bit unique. Okay. And so once it's come on fully, you'll know, and you're fully in the force, as we call it. And it can oftentimes be one of two type of experience. Okay, it can sometimes be really heavy. The medicine starts to come on and it starts to work through some low vibrational densities. It might be some stuck grief coming up. It might be some old wounds coming up, some big releases that are ready to come to the surface, things that you've been avoiding for years potentially. Or on the flip side, it might be really light. It might be just pure love, pure joy, pure laughter, all of the most beautiful things you can ever imagine. Or again, on the other side, it can be the hardest thing that you've ever experienced. Whatever you're getting, whether it's the most fun, enjoyable thing ever, or it's the hardest thing that you've ever gotten, hallelujah, gratitude for it, because it's exactly what you need. Again, the ayahuasca, the medicine, is so incredibly intelligent, and it knows what you need a lot more than we know what we need. And so trust in that. It's all perfect. It's all beautiful. And oftentimes the hardest, most challenging, uncomfortable experiences that I've had, they ended up being the most beneficial. The love, the joy, the bliss, those are great too, but the hard ones are usually where the biggest breakthroughs and the biggest healing happen. Sometimes it can be a lot of visions, especially with your eyes closed, visions of going and maybe meeting loved ones that have passed away. I think of a guy that has come through a couple of my retreats that was able to have a conversation with his mother that had passed a year prior. She came to him in this vision to get goosebumps, and it was a very healing experience for him. Maybe you go back and visit old versions of yourself in the visions. Maybe again, it's geometric patterns, it's vines, it's colors, whatever it might be. It also can be no visions at all. It can be very physical, very in the body. Stuck grief coming up. It might come up in tension, feeling in different parts of your body. It might be just very intense feelings and not really a lot of visions. And sometimes it can be a big purge, and a purge in the form of a puke. I promised we would talk about the puke bucket. Pukes are real, and they can absolutely happen in ayahuasca. But this is a big misconception. A lot of people think that the puke is actually this side effect that comes from the medicine and the digestion and your body not really fully accepting the medicine, and so it pukes. That's not the case at all in my comprehension. It's actually a huge energetic release when you purge through a puke. Okay, and a lot of people, I don't want to puke, I want to avoid the puke, they fight it. let it happen, man, because when you puke, it is one of the most beautiful, epic, biggest releases that you've ever had in your entire life. It might be years and years and years of tension and old wounds that are just ready to come up, and they come up in that big purge. And so for me personally, I didn't puke until my 8th ceremony. Okay, the first 8 ceremonies, I had some really intense experiences, but never had a physical puke per se. And so that 8th ceremony, it was a really challenging night. I was going through it. I was really uncomfortable. There were a lot of intense feelings, a lot of really intense thoughts. I was really restless. And all of a sudden, after a couple hours of this experience, I felt this huge swell of energy in my stomach form. And I sat up and immediately reached for my puke bucket. A little bit came out, to try not to be too descriptive, but a little bit came out. I then ran outside as quick as I could into the grass area and bent over and just let it out, man. And I finish, I look up into the sky, and it's a clear sky in the jungle, no light pollution, and it's just the cosmos. And I'm just like, oh, wow, immense gratitude. And in that one purge, it felt like years and years of work, inner work, coming to a head in that one puke. So it's a lot more than just this physical experience of puking like you do in an everyday life, or like you do with alcohol, for example. A very different thing. When you do get a puke in a purge, it is awesome. Hallelujah for it. But it's not like every ayahuasca ceremony, you're just puking the entire night and miserable. And so we've had the come up, we've experienced the peak, and important to note, and remember this if you're in ceremony, no matter how strong the medicine might get, no matter how strong the peak might be, no matter how uncomfortable it might be, or blissful and great, it will come down. You will come back to reality. You will come back to yourself, quote unquote. And so we now enter into the descent process. We start to land the plane, if you will. The intensity begins to drop. You start to feel a little bit more in your body. You start to see your surroundings more clearly, and you can start to relax a bit more if it was a really intense experience. We then around 3-4 a.m. close the ceremony. And so the facilitators, they come up to everyone just to see if anyone needs any extra support, any one-on-one help processing. If you're still in the medicine, which can happen, they can help support you through that. We then close the space. Okay, it's around 3-4 a.m. So it's now time to try to go to sleep, or food is served, which is my favorite personal part. We all go up to the kitchen and we get some bread, some fruit, and you're still kind of in the medicine, and it's kind of this slap happy energy. Usually everyone's kind of feeling silly like kids, and it's one of my favorite parts of the retreats and some of my favorite memories, and just being silly and laughing, and it's good stuff. And so then you got to go to sleep, right? It's 3, 4, 5 a.m. at this point, and we got another ceremony ahead. So you go back to the space, put some earplugs in, throw your mask on, and just force yourself to go to sleep. The next morning, this is where it gets interesting, okay? The next morning, you would think that you would be absolutely wrecked. You were up all night, drinking ayahuasca, potentially puking, not your normal Monday night per se, right? You actually wake up with this natural energy. You're full and abundant of energy, and your mind feels so clear, and your vision's so sharp, and your senses are all elevated. It's this natural high on life, man, and even though you only got a few hours of sleep. And at that point, that's the first taste for a lot of guys of understanding that this is truly medicine, that it's not like a drug. And then to discuss the second night, okay? So then we head into the second night of medicine. And sometimes some retreats, they do 3, 4, 5 nights of medicine. We then head into the second night. And the second night is really unique because the first one, the medicine was acclimating to you. You were acclimating to the medicine. It likely took a few hours for it to come on. You maybe were a little bit nervous. You weren't fully trusting of the experience. All that's over now, right? You're heading to the second night. You feel like you trust this thing a lot more. You kind of have an idea of what to expect to a degree. The medicine's already within you. It doesn't need to assimilate. And so that second night, you can oftentimes go a lot deeper. I mean, it often comes on a lot quicker. Not to say, the first night, people sometimes get everything they could have ever dreamed of just in the first night. But again, everyone's experience is different. Very common for that second night then to start to go a lot deeper. But both nights connect, right? The medicine knows how many nights you're going to be drinking, and so it creates one big loop. And for us on our retreat, we then close the loop on the third day with a Temazcal sweat lodge. And it's one of my absolute favorite tools in medicines. It's a very native medicine. It's been carried by tribes in Mexico and beyond for thousands and thousands of years. It's a bamboo structure built with thick blankets covering it. These ancient volcanic rocks that we call the ancestors, they're millions of years old. They hold this incredible wisdom, are cooked in a fire until they become red hot. They're then brought brought intentionally into the Temazcal sweat lodge over a couple hours, and they're brought in one by one. They're again red hot, water's poured on them, steam encompasses the sweat, prayers. There's a lot of layers to this process. I won't go super deep into it, but it is one of the most powerful experiences that I've ever had. One of the hardest experiences I've ever had as well. It's called the womb of the earth, and it truly feels like when you crawl out on the other side, you are reborn. You feel so cleansed physically from the steam penetrating. You feel so cleansed mentally. And what it really does is it helps integrate the experience you just had with the ayahuasca, which can be a very up in the cloud type of experience, whereas the Temazcal is very grounding back into the earth. You then crawl into the river that flows through the property, which is cold water. You came from this really hot experience, a contrast therapy type of thing, and it is epic. You know, you get into the water and just such immense gratitude after a couple hours of one of the hardest experiences you've ever had. And the journey now has come full circle. And now the integration process begins, which I'll share on more in a separate video. But that's what a ceremony actually looks like, right? It's one of the most intentional, one of the most controlled environments that you will ever step into, if assuming the people know what they're doing and you're at a proper retreat and proper ceremony, okay? The facilitators have done this thousands of times, ideally. The medicine that's being served has been done ceremonially for thousands and thousands of years. And so it's real work. It's some of the hardest work that you can get into. But man, the reward, the growth, the healing, the opportunities that come through this process are unlike anything I've ever experienced in this life. And so if you're thinking about doing this, I hope that this video gives you a more clear picture of what you're actually walking into. And as I want to encourage you again, be really mindful of where you go and do this. Not everyone's qualified. There's a lot of people that are unqualified, creating very unsafe environments. And so do your due diligence, do your research, but there are a lot of really, really great retreats and facilitators out there as well. I personally run retreats in Costa Rica. We do 2 nights of ayahuasca, as I discussed. We do a Temazcal. We have a lot of intentional workshops and practices throughout the week. Outside of the medicine, we do an 8-week prep process, a 7-day all-inclusive retreat, an 8-week post-retreat thorough integration process, which is arguably the most important part of this process. We focus on the brotherhood, the community. We take 11 guys that are hand-selected from all over the world. And so if you're interested in doing that type of retreat, I have a link here in the description with more info on the retreat. You can apply for the retreat as well. We do a couple per year. And if you have any questions on this, whether you come to my retreat or not, I'm passionate about this. I want to help. And so drop a comment. More than happy to help. I've got a free asset here in the description as well. That's a prep guide. It's a distilled version of what I offer my guys on the retreat for the prep process. You can download that as well. Thank you for watching. Go ahead and subscribe if you want more content like this, in addition to just holistic health content beyond the ayahuasca and plant medicine. I appreciate you. Much love. Take care.